All right. So welcome everybody to our Citizens Climate Lobby Houston Chapter monthly meeting. And the agenda for today, I'm doing our welcome message here. This is Joe Garfunkel. I'm our Houston Chapter leader. So thank you everybody for joining. We'll go through some introductions. If we have any new members today, I'm not sure if we do or not. And the main feature of our meeting is our En-ROADS presentation that Kristen will provide to us. Kristen is an En-ROADS ambassador. And then following that, we're going to go into our monthly calling campaign that we always do. Mark is going to lead that. Then we'll go through our other miscellaneous topics, our status reports from our 5 levers. And if we have time and if there's a need, we can do our breakout session. So that's kind of what we're looking at for today. And so here is this is what we put out on the Eventbrite for the guest speaker presentation. The topic is climate change, and overview of where we are and the possible solutions. And so Kristen, if you're ready for that, I can make you, I can give you access to share.
Sure.
Okay. So let me stop this and let me give you access. Okay, I think you should have access if you want to give it a try.
Okay, how's that?
I'm not seeing anything yet.
Okay. How about now?
Oh, now I can see it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. So I'm Kristen Newell, and I'm a chemical engineer, and I'm also an En-ROADS climate ambassador. Is anyone already familiar? Like, how many are already familiar with En-ROADS? Okay, some of us. Okay, not everyone. All right. So it's made by Climate Interactive is the company, and it's a combination of other simulators. So there's like the huge simulators that PhDs run, and they've kind of boiled them down into one that everyone can use. So please play with it. If you're not familiar with it already, please feel free to play with it after the presentation. This is just an introduction. It has a lot of layers, and it's a very powerful tool that's really easy to use. So definitely spend some time looking at it after. And this is kind of an overview of what it looks like. These are the base graphs on the left. It's the global sources of primary energy. You can see, so for example, the green stripe is renewables. So right now, these are both set to the current projections of where we're headed as a whole world. It's not just the US, it's considering the whole world. On the right, we've got greenhouse gas net emissions. And then we've got a 3.6 degree temperature rise. That's where we're headed right now for 2100. And the En-ROADS tool has been presented all over the world. Right now we're at 65 countries and 30,000 participants. So I'll go through this pretty quickly for this group because everyone's already aware. This is what our CO2 graph looks like. You can tell we're way out of normal. So this is where we are right now. We're at about 1.2 temperature rise currently. I think everyone in this group knows that the Paris Climate Agreement was for 2 degrees, but most people are talking about trying to limit to 1.5 degrees now. So this is the time we have to work with. This is why everyone's talking about how the next 10 years are very critical, because we're projected to be at 1.5 in only 10 years. And everyone in this group already knows we're trying to avoid the risk of flooding and coral reefs bleaching, longer droughts, lethal heat And this just kind of puts a number to it. So it's estimated that about $650 billion were lost between 2016 and 2018 with damages from global warming. So that's what our group is working to stop and reduce. All right, so here's kind of the breakdown of the different greenhouse gases and their growth over time. So you can see the CO2 from fossil fuels, and then the green stripe is carbon dioxide from land use and forestry. And then right now we're at about 18% from methane. And then does anyone know what the nitrous oxide is from? About 5%. No, I thought I saw John. I know he knows.
From cars.
Yeah, from and from agriculture. So when farmers put too much excess fertilizer, the excess nitrogen goes into the atmosphere. Okay, does anyone know what F gases means and what they're from?
That's from air conditioning, Freon, isn't that correct?
Yeah, exactly, from refrigerants. And it's kind of like, as an amount, it's kind of small, but they're very potent. So this is just amounts. So we know that methane is more potent than CO2, and the F gases are even more potent. So that's why even at 2%, we're concerned about them. All right, so this is a similar graph. We're looking at CO2 by emission sources. So it just gives you a feel for how much is from coal, oil, gas, others, and land use change. This was kind of interesting because you can see that the land use change is pretty close to the natural gas. So that makes it kind of highlights the significance of land use changes. Now this is from the EPA. It's actually it's a slide I got from John. So it shows you the greenhouse gas emissions by sector. So it's about 25% from electricity and heat, 24% from agriculture, forestry, land use, 21% from industry, 14% from transportation, and 6% from buildings. And then on the right-hand graph, we've got the greenhouse gas emissions by economic sector. So transportation is a really big. Transportation, electricity, and industry are almost evenly split for the US.
Yeah, the big thing there is the difference between the US for transportation. The US has twice as large a percentage because we drive a lot of cars.
Yeah, and that effect makes our agriculture smaller compared to the world.
Right. So we have 28% of ours. So when they talk about doing electric cars, that is sort of a big deal in the US, but worldwide,
Yeah.
if everybody immediately went to electric cars, that only covers 14%.
I'm guessing also another reason for transportation is that other countries, specifically in Europe, they have a lot more mass transportation, I think, compared to
Right.
what we use here.
Or they're just agricultural societies without much transportation. Bicycles, if we're thinking worldwide. All right, so next, this is all about methane. So the human sources of methane emissions. So we've got 34% from natural gas and petroleum systems, 23% from enteric fermentation, landfills, coal mining, manure, and other.
And sorry, what is enteric fermentation? Sorry.
So I'll have to guess.
Belching and farting.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
And yeah, enteric means in your gut.
Okay.
Oh.
So that's from cows, dairy cows, and meat
Yeah,
cows.
and other other animals that belch, other ruminants?
Yeah, little known fact, it's actually mostly the belching that has the methane in it rather than the farting.
Yeah, it's more belching. If you don't want to say farting, just say belching. You cover most of it.
All right, so we'll look at inroads in general, but for those who are already familiar with it, there's some brand new features. So now within inroads, you can click on sea level rise maps. You can check different locations around the world. And then they've also added clean electricity standards. So it gets a little more detailed on instead of just carbon price, you can kind of look a little more detailed on what different legislation means. And the other new part they added, it's impacts of climate change. So there's new graphs on the impact of the population exposed to sea level rise. And so that's about the people living on land that's below annual flood levels. And then they've added the probability of an ice-free Arctic summer, because that's a big anticipated impact of climate change. And then they've added a decrease in crop yield from temperature. And they've added species losing more than 50% of their climatic range. And that's kind of broken down by types of species, broad categories. And then they've added additional deaths from extreme heat. And that's kind of set up by the part of the world. Let's see, so let me. All right, so I stopped sharing. Let me share again. Inroads. Okay, so now we're looking at the simulator. So first, I guess for those who haven't seen it before, this allows us to look at energy supply, transport, buildings industry, land industry emissions, and then we can change these bars to say, okay, if we did better on methane, what would be the effect on global temperature? So let's set up a scenario first to try to see what we could do to affect the temperature rise. So someone just say what you'd like to see change, like increased renewables. We talked about electric cars. We could look at that. What should we change first?
About coal, the impact of coal.
Yeah, so let's like cut coal in half. So that gives us 0.1 degree.
I love renewables, so let's increase renewables.
Yeah, let's take renewables all the way. We can, I'm comfortable taking it all the way because they've kind of, every single factor they have in here, it's based in reality. So they don't let you go to 100% electric cars. They have a gradual percent year by year.
Yeah, what
Okay,
that, notice it says highly subsidized. So what, only thing Kristen can really do here is do what governments could do is subsidize renewables, because people still have to buy them, you know, make the decision to buy them and so on like that. So
Although utilities are highly subsidized in their fossil fuels, right? And they, right now, if you're building a new plant, renewables is actually the less costly plant. So yes,
right.
It used to be, that may not be the case going forward.
Right, that's the reason you'll notice when some of these bars get moved, if you've already moved some of the bars and then you get to the next bar and you want to try to move it and there's no effect, you say, well, how come? Well, it's already been covered by some other, you know, step you've taken. So
right.
And who likes electric vehicles? Ah, they're awesome. So let's do some electrification of our vehicles.
Okay. So again, it says highly incentivized. So that's what the, like what the government does. It's what it's based on. Jim, did you have one?
Yeah, and actually that one was a much more immediate effect and then a straight line effect. Now, I remember when the model came out a couple of years ago, afforestation did not have a big impact. And you remember that was when the people were talking about 1 trillion trees and that sort of thing. But I hadn't played with the model since then. So what's the effect of more trees?
So let's look. So they actually build in like the maximum amount of land in the world that could be reforested. So that's why it's kind of limited. So we can take that all the way up. So that's another 0.1.
Yeah, these people that say 1 trillion trees will solve the problem and it's the cheapest way to do it, it gives you 1/10 of a degree. I mean, it's important. We should do it. We need every 10th, people. Lean into that. We need it every 10th, but it doesn't solve the problem. But
Well,
What-
I'm pro shade.
It makes a
What-
local difference.
What if we reduce the oil and increase the nuclear?
Okay, another 0.1 for each of those.
Not much, huh?
Okay, now did you guys see what else is down here? Natural gas.
but let me point out on the nuclear,
Zero
nuclear is a
carbon.
good example of real life. If you suddenly decided to highly subsidize nuclear and you pass that bill in Congress, then tomorrow, how much has changed? And how long is it going to take it for anything to change? It takes a long time to
15 years maybe.
sign and get approved and build nuclear. So and what we need to do is stuff right now, as Kristen pointed out, that time frame between now and 2030. That's what we need to be aiming at. And nuclear doesn't touch that. These
Yeah,
are great for long
At
term.
least the utility scale nuclear fission in the
Right.
US.
Right,
So is this okay, this is global, not US
right.
source.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
global, so that's why nuclear looks fairly small. It's larger
What-
in certain countries.
What I love about this En-ROADS is that right down there, that little carbon price, you know,
Uh-huh.
maybe that is just our solution, which for 15 years we've been saying that might be our solution.
Yeah, so let's look at carbon price because that's CCL's big one.
Wow,
Okay,
that's
that's
big.
the biggest one we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the beauty is it flattens the curve. Oh, sort of almost, because our goal is not only to reduce temperature, but to flatten it so it stays reduced, you know, to make it horizontal. So it does a good job.
And one reason it makes so much difference is we're affecting coal, oil, natural gas all at the same time instead of just one of those. And there's one detail in here that's interesting. Well, there's a lot of detail, so definitely look some more after. You guys didn't have any other plans today, so you can just play with En-ROADS the rest of the day. So under here it has stop building new coal infrastructure. So that's something that's also been
Mhm.
discussed to be legislated. So we can do that as well. And that changes the coal even more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the other big one, Kristen, would be methane. In Congress, we're trying to get the methane bill passed as well to increase the cost on that.
Right, and so what's included here, it's methane, nitrous oxide, and F gases all together, even though it says methane. So they're including cows, agriculture, natural gas drilling, waste, nitrous oxide from fertilizers like we talked about. So yeah, so let's look at that too. So yeah, that's pretty big.
Mhm.
Okay, so we got us down to 1.9 by 2100. That's pretty good. Do we want to check any of the other things, or do you guys want to look at the new features now?
Okay, I don't see it in here. How is in the model is CCS accommodated?
Well, that's, you want me to cover that? That's
Yeah, so
over.
Oh,
there's a
okay.
couple, there's a few different ways. So you can look at coal with CCS. And then it even lets you look at what if there was a technology breakthrough.
Okay. No, I
There's
just
a-
asked because the other day I watched Representative Crenshaw's, he had some kind of recorded statement when he attended the Glasgow meeting. And so he was sort of flogging that silver bullet. And I did CCS a few years ago, and it's awfully energy intensive. So it's a very expensive bullet.
When we
Thank you.
modeled the CCS with Q45 and other subsidies by itself, nothing else, I think it only decreased by about another 1/10. It wasn't significant at all.
Right. One
Maybe we
way to
can see
look
that,
at it
Kristen.
is, and this is the way the model treats it, is it says that you can use natural gas, but we'll clean up the natural gas. Okay, and so it becomes then, if you want to argue you now have a clean fuel, it becomes a clean fuel that competes with the other clean fuels, renewables and so on like that. And quite frankly, as Jim just said, it's expensive and it's not going to outcompete the renewables. And so, yeah, it's great if there are places where you have to use natural gas, then we should require that it be clean. I mean, that's the way I look at it. When natural gas has to be used or coal has to be used, then it should be required to be clean. But it is not a solution. You know, the solution to our energy problem isn't to start getting more natural gas and more coal and cleaning it like hell. That's not the solution.
Yeah, it's like ethanol. The energy equation runs the wrong way.
Right. So on that topic, under technological, we also have carbon removal. So instead of being under bioenergy, BECCS, bioenergy with carbon capture is under the technological category. And then they also have direct air capture, enhanced mineralization, agricultural soil carbon sequestration, and biochar.
Yeah, maybe we should spend a minute explaining the difference between carbon capture and direct air removal, because those really mean two different things, but sometimes it's a bit confusing.
Sure. So the carbon capture we were first talking about, say you have a natural gas electric utility or a coal electric utility, you add an additional set of equipment on the end of it to capture carbon and then sequester it. So actually there's a facility in Sugar Land that's doing that right now. So they're sending
Petronova,
their,
but it's suspended. It's no longer
Yeah.
working.
is
Yeah,
that
they-
okay?
They
Petronova.
stopped that. That was only one of the 4 production trains, and they stopped that once the subsidy ran out.
Okay. Yeah, sounds like ethanol.
Only the
Okay.
subsidies haven't run out on ethanol yet.
Yeah, so carbon capture is like, I think why it's attractive is you're still using the equipment, the facilities that are already there. So the electricity generators that are already there, and you're adding some equipment onto that, and it's well understood how to do it. And in the oil field, they've been injecting CO2 for enhanced oil recovery for decades. So that's kind of understood as well. So, but financially, it doesn't make much sense. But I think
Correct.
that's why they're
And then
popular, because they're understood.
Petronova is the exact example of that. You can't assume that you have a clean energy solution if it depends on having economic prices, right? And as soon as it becomes uneconomical, then it's no longer a solution. It's not reliable. We can't depend on that.
And so direct air capture to me is also pretty expensive. And I think our best bet is to not release the carbon dioxide in the first place. But what direct air capture does is, after the CO2 is already in the atmosphere, try to pull it back out. So if you want to learn more about that, you can look at Project Drawdown or Air Miners. they go into great detail on lots of different technologies to do that. There's a facility in Switzerland where they actually just put a bunch of big fans and they capture the CO2 out of the air that way. Does
Yeah,
that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
Yeah, the reason En-ROADS treats it that way is they, over on the carbon capture side, the CO2 is never released to the atmosphere. It never makes it there. The idea is it's pulled out before it leaves the smokestack. Whereas over on the other side, it's already in the atmosphere and it's got to be taken out. So that's considered carbon removal for the, whereas they don't treat CCS as a carbon removal.
Yep.
Right.
I always wondered if there was a high enough price on carbon and enough of an incentive, new technology could be possibly invented to help with that. Do y'all think, does that include possible future innovations?
So new zero carbon was a category for that. So like we'll discover a new source of energy that doesn't emit greenhouse gases.
Yeah, what they decided is to put, everybody's got their idea of something that's gonna, hydrogen, they'll start naming something, say, okay, put it in here and now move the sliders around and characterize it, and it'll end up being the same as nuclear. It's gonna take a long time to get it, tested and designed and built. And I would love to have this amazing new zero carbon fusion fuel source by the end of the century, but we got to figure out something in the next 10 or 20 years.
Yeah, you can tell it doesn't really start being effective till 2040 because they're realistic. They're giving it time to be developed and implemented. The one big thing we didn't look at was energy efficiency, which to me I really like because it's a win-win. You pay less for the power you're using because you're using less power.
Yeah, the energy efficiency starts helping run as soon as you're more efficient. It takes a while to do renovation of buildings to change their energy source and something like that. So that's the reason it doesn't happen right away, but at least energy efficiency means it's CO2 that never makes it into the atmosphere.
Sorry, I'm trying to grab my header.
What about population restriction?
Yeah, they have that on there as well. So we can reduce population growth. So the base case is the UN projected numbers. And then we can add some reduction. So you can see it doesn't change the energy mix, it just changes the total demand.
It's not really there. If you notice, the wording's a little different. It just refers to lower growth. So it's giving you an opportunity to characterize what population projection is while you're running this model compared to what the UN, the base UN thing is. So it's not there as a means of government control. Some people say base economic growth is going to be this or that, and same thing with population. So this way you get to change it and then run your model.
Right.
Christian,
So we
before-
have a model that gets us to 1.6. So let me show you some of the new features are under impacts. So graphs.
Christian, before I forget, if you could place the web link for this scenario in the chat so everybody can have that and play with it at home if they'd like to.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, so graphs and then impacts. So these are the new ones. Probability of an ice-free Arctic summer, crop yield, species losing 50%, Population exposed to sea level rise. And then where was I thought there was a fifth line. Anyway, the ones they already had here before, you can see the ocean acidification, air pollution. All right, so which one do you guys want to look at first?
How about the decrease in crop yield? That sounds interesting.
Okay, so the black is the base case, and then blue is the case that we came up with. And they picked these maize, wheat, rice, and soybean. So worldwide, these account for 3/4 of the calories that humans consume.
Just to clarify, the black number, like for maize, 21%, that's the business as usual case?
Right.
Okay.
That's
And
the
so-
the base.
and so
20
that-
by
that-
2010, we'd have a 21% reduction.
So now that we can see what that percentage reduction would be, is there any additional interpretation of what that really means to us? Having less food available for us to eat,
Right.
what does that do to us?
Where's the bar where war goes up?
More, yeah, exactly. Famine, war.
Yeah, I think we're all just gonna have to infer what we want on that. Crop yield is not a good thing if it goes down.
Well, and one aspect that's hard to quantify in a model like this is any decrease in the nutrition in the food that's produced, because these are gross amounts, but essentially the nutrition per apple or whatever per soybean, there are temperature effects on that as well.
Well, mostly it's oil content for soybeans. It's
Oil
not
content?
actually the quality of the protein in the soybeans itself. But the real issue is the supply chain, which will be diminished by substantial numbers. We're already seeing it in Argentina, Brazil today. You're seeing it with floods in northern Brazil, which are affecting that they haven't seen in probably 100 years. So the real issue is what happens when you start cutting food supply and you've already supported corn with ethanol, taking food sources into fuels. And I guess my real question in this whole thing is, how do you rank each of these so that we could actually focus enough communal energy to actually attack and solve one issue at a time? And we have done this in the past in Houston, Galveston, with addressing the NOx issues in the past. When the first TCEQ rules came out, everybody complained about NOx in the stationary sources, but in the arc of 7 to 8 years, we dropped it 80% and mobile sources went through the roof. So I'm wondering how you get the community to focus on either carbon price or whatever you think is the low-hanging fruit to get everybody on the same page instead of being split up around which are the priorities.
And I think that's, Charles, thank you for that. I think that's why I've been a member of Citizens Climate Lobby now for so long and believe in putting the price on carbon, because it sort of does that magic for us in that you put that price on and market drives down the fossil fuels and in return makes the renewables more cost effective. And it just affects every aspect of the market. But maybe that doesn't.
I agree with you. I think this is the key issue that we've been talking about for the last 15 years.
Sure.
I don't know how, we have only gotten, it's taken that long to get the population in Congress to even get to that discussion, right? We've had Jim Baker at Rice who said, I don't understand carbon, but I think this is the way to go. This makes more sense than what we've been talking about. I don't want to see my children's farmlands destroyed. But we haven't been able to get the political will to do it. And I don't know if it's because of the quote Exxons or corporate world. I think it's a question of whether or not people actually understand the consequences. And I don't think they understand the consequences yet.
They don't. And this is a good talking point. I'd like to just jump in a bit. So, number one, we've had all of the disinformation all of these years from all the major oil companies telling people that there is no issue. We don't need to worry about it, right? The new movie, Don't Look Up. Don't look up,
Yes.
just look
Oh
down,
my
right?
God.
Ignore it. Secondly, the people, I would say in general, have not seen the dotted lines, the breadcrumbs linking to what the real impacts are. And in the past year, I think was one of the first years when people were first starting to really see it for themselves and understand it. And the topic that we're on right now, immediately, the food, right? Food prices have increased dramatically. Other prices have increased as well. But, and I don't think I've seen an actual paper on this, but I think the direct line for food prices has been all the climate change impacts out west, California, which is a major agricultural food grower. And therefore there's less availability. Prices will continue to increase. I think as people start seeing these direct impacts, that will make a big difference.
Yeah,
Other comments?
that's part of why I like presenting for NREDs, because it helps people solidify more of their understanding and see what the impacts are. And also to see what they can do.
Joe, just as a side comment, you're right about part of it for supply issues on climate change, but a fair portion of this is the cost of freight. And I can't give you a better example than probably container freight from China to Long Beach, which used to cost 5,000 to 7,000, now costs 30,000 for a 20-foot container size. And you're seeing the same across most places right now. And even though the maritime industry is trying to get to green ammonia for fueling, that's going to be a long time in coming. All of these things take long to change when you're talking about bulk vessels carrying freight, whether it's containers or break bulk or commodities across the planet. And we seem to have forgotten how difficult it is to move something from one place to another because everybody's conditioned to hitting their phone and getting anything they want in about one day, which isn't actually the real world.
I agree with everything you said, Charles. I think the example I was trying to focus in on out west here in the US, everyone here, I think, has seen the pictures of the water reservoirs drying up. The allocations of water to farmers has decreased. They don't have enough water to continue their same level of agriculture. That's really what I was trying to focus on, I think.
That's right. Even here in Houston, the Addicks Reservoir is dry, which is unheard of. We've had record-breaking temperatures for January and December, and it doesn't seem to get anybody's attention except that it's warm outside. But they don't realize what that means in terms of changes in rainfall. And back to your point about supply side and the agriculture, whether it's sorghum or corn or cotton or anything else.
I think part of the problem is all of us on this call, we're in the United States, so we have the money to continue buying food. So it's an equity problem. The people who are affected by the food price increases first are the ones that have the least impact on climate change.
This is a really good discussion. So thank you everybody for jumping in. Kirsten, do you want to continue? And then we'll have to wrap up in maybe about five or 10 minutes or so.
So this is a cool website. This is from Climate Central. We can look at well, I was thinking about coming up. All right, so blue is land at risk, and then green, the green would have been at risk on the base case, but that's the amount that we saved based on our scenario. I think, let's see what we have. I haven't actually played with this much. So here's our area. Well, we didn't really save too much with our scenario. You can see all the land at risk.
Yeah, I've looked at several of those, and sadly, we're already committed to more loss than we would all prefer. There's an awful lot of blue there, and that blue doesn't get changed to green in many cases, which means no matter what we do, we're going to lose land because of the oceans are going to rise, and we're committed to it.
Christian, if you can go back to Galveston. In the previous slide, the Galveston was covered up by the legend. We couldn't really see it.
Yeah. Let's see, it looks like I can move it around. Yeah, it's completely gone.
Yeah.
And if you lose the barrier islands, then some of the hurricane impacts are a lot greater.
Yeah, exactly. So you would think all the facilities over here would want to keep the barrier island.
I mean, if I'm looking at that correctly, so where's the main part? I always have trouble looking at the map of Galveston. Where's the downtown Galveston Island? Right there, right there.
Yeah, I think this whole thing is Galveston.
So Galveston, the downtown area survives even in the base case, but everything west of there, that going southwest,
Right.
that's even in the base case, that's going under, even and it doesn't get recovered by the green case.
No.
I think like in this part, we lose a lot of wetlands, which actually
Right.
wetlands absorb more CO2 than land in general.
So if you've got a house out there in Pirates Cove or something like that, you better sell it quickly. Is that what that's saying? Before
Well,
anybody else sees this map?
You know,
Yeah.
interestingly, people forget, like in Houston, it was only a few years ago, we had Harvey, we had 52 inches of rain in about 36 hours. And with the most dramatic effects that we've ever seen in Houston, where areas flooded that had never flooded before, we still couldn't get flood planning and flood control issues resolved in the state, in Houston. And we had complete denial by Austin in terms of supporting everything from waste cleanup to all the damage that was done. So I'm wondering, back to Dory's point, what is the low-hanging fruit that gets everybody's attention? Back to Joe's comment about don't look up, because we've got to find something that we can all, not all of us, but we can get some garnered community support to focus on. And I don't know whether everybody understands the carbon price, even though we've been pushing it for 15 years to congressional, I mean, we're talking not just Bob Inglis, we're talking Strammer wrote the first paper in like 2004. What does it take to get that kind of impact sold to the average Jane and Joe Doe? Particularly with this map, because this says nothing's going to change for some of these people.
It depends on where they're coming from, because I think there's a large group of people that sort of believe it's a problem, but maybe they think it's too big for them to have any impact. So I think for that group, it's a different message than others. So maybe they actually, one of the point of looking at the En-ROADS is to give people hope as well, to say, okay, if we do make changes, it will have an impact. So I think that's true for part of the people out there.
So, what we try to do as a CCL organization, we have our 5 levers. One of our levers is media, and we try to communicate our message out to as many people as possible. We do that by trying to submit op-eds into our local paper, the Houston Chronicle, and sometimes we're successful at that. We submit letters to the editor to the Chronicle almost every month. We had an excellent letter published by the Chronicle in December by our chapter, and another one also published in December by our Woodland CCL chapter. In addition to that, we post on social media. We do try to get our message out. But again, people just, for whatever reason, they're too busy with their normal lives, taking care of their children. Others just don't know what to do. Just as an example, here at CCL Houston chapter on our newsletter distribution list, this goes out to almost roughly 2,000 people. But yet, when we see who attends our meetings, when we see who's actually actively engaged, it's a relatively small number of that, right? We don't have 2,000 people that are actively engaged. Even though they're getting our message, they know what's happening, but yet for whatever reason, they just can't do something to help us. So it's more of a human problem rather than, really what we can do. We're always trying to continue doing what we're doing, but it's extremely difficult to get people actively engaged. Others, feel free to jump in, right?
I agree with you. That was my question. I don't know how you get a critical mass. I mean, I've been involved in the environmental world for longer than I care to think about, but we're still after all these many years, we're still fighting greenwashing by many corporations. We're still fighting credit trading, which is a lot of greenwashing in many places. We have engineers on this group here who know that most people should be doing a material balance when they think about whether or not what the net is of whether it's renewable or whether it's coal or whether it's gas. And we haven't been able to get that message to be as simple as a hammer and as effective as a doorknob. And I'm sort of lost trying to figure out how to make that pitch.
And Charles, I'll just offer, I'm sorry, I wear rose tinted glasses all the time, but we have seen, we have seen change in some politicians. And in
Yes.
the conversation is so much more prevalent if you think back that
It
it is
is.
now a table, dinner table conversation. And what I've appreciated, again, I'm sorry, I've sounded like a CCL salesperson, but what I appreciate is that we leave space for politicians and leaders to change their mind, we give them that safety net to say, but we have to keep pressing them, which is why we're going to call them again and again and again and again, because we don't have time to John's point. So it's changing. That's the road.
It is changing. No, it has been very, very good progress. Dory, I didn't mean in any way to diminish success. That wasn't it. But I'm trying to get the successes accelerated to get to a larger, I don't know if that means going to speak at Boy Scouts and talk about environmental science. I don't know if that means to talk to Girl Scouts. I don't know if that means talking to churches. I'm at a loss at what we've done. I used to teach environmental science for merit badges, but it's very, very hard to get a critical mass because the kids do have a place and a role here to pressure their parents at the dinner table, but I don't know if that's big enough yet as well. So I'm frustrated as you are, though I'm probably not as, you're better at this, Dory.
Well, I think that's the utility of models like this is if you notice, whatever approach is taken by playing with the different impact sliders, the eventual results are delayed. They take a while. So the significance to me is that whenever you start, the impact's going to be delayed. So start now.
Is this something that would be better suited for the I don't want to say the nerd group, but the younger generation of I don't know, high school, late high school to college, where there's a technological capacity for this? Because most of the people, remember, half the country only makes $35,000 a year less, and only about 20% of the country makes $65,000 a year less. And back to the point that was made earlier about people trying to fight COVID, work, family issues, all the stuff. It's who has the time to use this tool to generate that enthusiasm? I guess that's my real question.
So I love your,
clearly it's us, we know because we're involved in it, but I'm looking for the outside.
So the next generation of tech savvy kids.
Exactly.
So yes, to all your things, should we be doing Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts? No. Yes. So that's what we're doing. Joe's leading us. We have a good group of people going out and giving presentations. You're now on that group. Thank you. So do that. Yes. But we also have been giving this tool to legislators so that they can be empowered to speak correctly and accurately. But more work needs to be done.
Just to add to that point a little bit, Charles, when we have been able to invite and have our youth, our high school students join us in our lobby meetings with our Houston congressional team, it's been amazing. And simply because of that fact, for example, John Segrin is our lobby team lever, and he's in the district for Rep. Sylvia Garcia. He invited his high school environmental club to join him. And because they were on that schedule, we were able to get a face-to-face meeting with Rep. Garcia on that. And so the impact of having the youth involved is tremendous. But again, it's not easy to do that. They're busy, they have schoolwork, they have exams and so on. From our experience, the people that are mostly involved, that have the time and and really have an interest are those that are older, like ourselves, who have grandchildren and are deeply concerned about the future of our grandchildren. For the most part, we are the ones who have the time and who are the ones that are most actively involved. That's just from experience of what we're seeing. But if we can get more younger people involved, that's really where the big bang comes from what we've seen as well.
I would say everybody here get a gathering of 10 friends and family and get me or John to make this presentation to them. You can entice them whatever way you want, and then surprise, we also have a presentation.
That sounds great. All of the above. I just want to make a point, like the people that I interact with, minds are difficult to change. But I think this website is the most useful for like people who are already agree with the issue and are climate activists. I've talked to several that, have their specific pet project that they like and don't appreciate how much of a change carbon pricing actually makes compared to everything else being, it's a head and shoulders above everything else. And this I think is most useful to climate activists, so we can coalesce around one solution instead of having splintering off efforts across the board.
Very true. All right, this has been a really good discussion. We really need to wrap this up. Kristen, if you want to just conclude, and then we'll close that out.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a brief overview. Like I said, if you want to look at it some more later, there's a bunch of different layers that you can try different things with.
Okay.
And I just appreciate everyone, and hopefully part of the message is that we can get there. So it is possible to get to 1.5. And we, just as a group today, we threw together a scenario and we got there. So
excellent. So at this point, we're going to,
to
thank you so much, Kristen. I really appreciate it. At this point, we would like to, if anyone has to drop off, we would like to get a group photo before anyone does drop off. But for the, we do plan on continuing with the remainder of the agenda, which means that we'll be making our monthly call to our representatives, and we'll go through our current status of where we are. But if everybody can turn on their cameras, and we'll get a nice photo. Okay, I got it. Let me just make sure it came out. Yep, I got it. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get the our agenda back up here. I go into slideshow mode. Okay, and now Mark is going to lead us through our monthly calling campaign.
Thank you, Joe. Hello, everybody. Yeah, most of you may be familiar with this, and hopefully you're already signed into the monthly calling campaign that gives you a reminder every month. And that on the slide there, that's a monthly calling campaign. If you need to register, if you're not already registered for that, you can do that. And so what we're doing is we're calling both senators and whoever our congressional representative happens to be. And that's the link on B there on the slide, CCL USA. And so we'll go ahead and I'll walk us through that for anybody who's not familiar with it. And you can click on that link, and you'll type in your address and zip code. It will bring up your two senators as well as your congressional rep. And it also has a script. And I'll just follow the script that I have for mine. So let's see, I'm going to call Senator Cornyn. What we found is sometimes the congressional office in Washington number is full voicemail.
Hello, this is Senator John Cornyn. Thanks for calling my Washington, D.C. office. For general information regarding my office locations and operating hours, please press 1. To leave a comment regarding current issues of interest, please press 2. If you'd like to speak, I appreciate you taking the time to make your views known on current policy issues of interest to you. Please leave your comment as well as your local zip code after the tone. Thank you and have a great day.
Hello, Senator Cornyn. My name's Mark Harriman, and I live in zip code 77080 in Houston. I'm calling to urge you to support a carbon price if that legislation comes up. And the benefit of that would be that US businesses would not need to pay a tariff in the European Union, and that would help them remain internationally competitive. Thank you for considering this. All right, as I was saying, if the mailbox is full or nobody answers, you can try the local office, and that usually works. So I'm gonna try Senator Cruz's local office, because a lot of times his voicemail is full in Washington.
Calling the Houston office of Senator Ted Cruz. We are currently helping other constituents. If you would like to leave a message for Senator Cruz, please do so now.
Hello, Senator Cruz. This is Mark Harriman. I live in 77080 zip code in Houston. I'm calling to urge your support for a price on carbon products. This would help US businesses remain internationally competitive and avoid paying the tariff that the European Union is going to institute. Thank you for considering this. All right, and then I have...
Mark, before you go ahead to the next one, so everyone, please go ahead and start making your calls now. And in the chat window, I did place the web link there right at the top of all of my web links. And that's the link you can click on to get started through the prompts. Thank you. And put yourselves on mute, please.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Joe, for that reminder. So my representative is Dan Crenshaw, and I'm going to have a different script with him based on what CCL told me. Oops, let's see.
We're trying to reach out the voicemail box and it's not been set up yet. Please try your call again later.
Okay, so that was his Washington office. Let me try his local Houston office.
Thank you for contacting Congressman Crenshaw's Cypresswood office. We're unavailable at the moment. If you could leave your name and number, a staff member will get back to you. Thank you.
Hello, Representative Crenshaw. My name is Mark Harriman. I live in zip code 77080. I'm calling to urge you to vote for the Growing Climate Solutions Act. When that comes up for a vote, it's in the House Bill 2820. This will help farmers, foresters, and ranchers access carbon markets. They'll get paid for preventing carbon emissions and also paid for carbon sequestration. Thank you for your consideration of this. All right, and so usually you do get a voicemail when you call, and you can just follow the script. And yeah, we're trying to do that every month. So hopefully everybody will sign up for the calling campaign, and then we'll move forward with that. Just one other thing, I think CCL National wants us to be sure and record on their website when we do make a call. Joe, while we're waiting, I'll just make a comment about on the calling campaign. I noticed on that website, they're encouraging us also to email our senators and President Biden about the negotiations going on in the Senate about carbon. Hopefully they're negotiating about a carbon fee to include in the Build Back Better program.
Sorry, I was on mute. We have a slide on that in the agenda we'll get to in just a second or two. Mark, if I can ask a favor though, can you update our agenda slide deck so that you can include the direct phone numbers we can call? For example, myself, I was not able to get through to either of our two senators. I didn't have the new phone numbers handy on that. Could you add that
Sure.
to the slide so everybody has that?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, it looks like most everybody is done making their calls. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. All right, let's go into share mode. Oops, it's not what I meant to do. All right, so I've already put all of our links into the chat window. Everybody should have that. And here's the slide that Mark was referring to, that we have another campaign that we'd like to really get involved in very heavily, that we're being asked to do this. And so this is to send an email to President Joe Biden. The link is in the chat window, and this should also take 2 minutes or less. So if everybody can do that now, that'd really be great. And we'll just pause here for a minute so everybody has a chance to do that. All right, everybody done with that one? We'll continue on. Another item I wanted to cover fairly quickly because we're running out of time in our agenda here. So back in December, I'm sure that everybody saw the news that Senator Manchin had come out as being opposed to voting on the Build Back Better Act. And I know that that caused a lot of anger amongst a lot of people and a great deal of disappointment. So, you know, it's not all dark negative news though. CCL has come out with a statement on that. And again, we're going to be mobilizing again as much as we can here in January with really a fresh wave of outreach to Congress. And so just want everybody to be aware of that, you know, things are still moving forward. There is still some hope. We don't want to totally give up on it. And I'm not sure if there are any comments or feedbacks on that really quickly before we move on.
Yeah, I think the latest I saw on CCL was that Senator Manchin said he wouldn't negotiate on the carbon provisions as well as something about childcare.
All right, let's go ahead and move on. There's a brand new project, and this is related to our earlier discussion about trying to get, you know, teens and youth involved. Here in Texas, our CCL Texas leadership team has launched a brand new project. It's called Help Wanted for 2022 Texas Teen Climate Champions. And so I wanted to make sure everybody here was aware of that. I'll also put this info in our next newsletter. And so CCL here in Texas is looking for teen participants, middle and high school, teachers to help us connect. And others, that means, adults basically to help with presentations, database management, social media, et cetera. All of the things we need to do to really activate a much larger number of teens and, high school youth. So if anybody's interested in that, again, here's the web link for more info, and the contact is Bob Hendricks. I think I put that into the chat, but let me go back. Let me, if I have not put that in, let me copy and paste that now. Well, there's Bob Hendricks' phone number. If anyone, his email address, if anybody's interested for that one. That's a really important one. Okay, we're going to go on. Immediately after this meeting, that's at noon Central Time, there is a CCL national speaker, and he's going to be talking about the involvement of Catholics in the climate movement and how to get Catholics energized to help out. And so that should also be very interesting. The links are there. And so now we're up to our lever status reports. John Segrin was not able to attend today's meeting. I'm not sure what we can share with that. Dory or Cord or Mark, anyone have any updates that they can provide for John?
None, but aren't we zooey in our districting? Oh my goodness.
Okay, I'm going to go on to the next slide. Court, if you want to give a quick status update.
Sure, thank you. Good morning. So we're still continuing our Texas-wide economist statement outreach. The next round of emails to different professors at Texas universities is going to be going out this month. And hopefully by the end of this first quarter, we're able to get our op-ed out in time for the next round of lobby meetings. The main point of this was to show Texas economists endorsing a price on carbon, much like what was done at the national level. And we've been doing presentations to churches and high schools. And so we're still looking for opportunities for that. And in this new year, some of our projects can focus on reaching out to the Port of Houston, any businesses that maybe have been impacted by relocation because of climate impacts. And there's a whole other host of opportunities with faith communities and, like I said, high school communities. So if y'all are interested in understanding more about our Grass Tops engagement, my email is there. And our next meeting is going to be January 22nd at noon. And I send out email reminders and Slack reminders for those. Thanks everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, Court.
Thank you.
Mark, Grassroots.
Yes, just to report on 2 items. So I did reach out to Jim Tucker at a First Congregational Church in West Houston. And so they're going to consider a possible presentation that we could do in the future. And then we did, a number of us did a presentation last month at Thoreau Unitarian Universalist. We requested an endorsement. They're going to consider that in the future. And we had about, as I remember, about 12 to 15 interested members of their church asking us a lot of questions. So I think that was a good information session for them. I believe that's it, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And here's myself for the media team. There was quite a bit of activity in the month of December. First of all, at the top of the list, we did send out our December newsletter. We just sent out our newsletter this week for the month of January. And there was quite a bit of activity in submitting letters to the editor. Several letters to the editor submitted to the Chronicle. John Segrin, dated December 9th, he had an excellent letter to the editor that was published. And if anyone has not seen that, I really recommend going and clicking on those links to take a look at it. Really extremely well written. We had another letter to the editor also published in the Chronicle, this one by our colleagues in the Woodland CCL chapter. That was on December 22nd, and that link is there as well. And then several other letters to the editors that I've submitted, but I don't seem to have as much luck in getting mine published. But regardless of that, when they don't get published, we publish ours on our WordPress. And so the links are there to take a look at what was submitted, and that's on our WordPress. And we always as well post these on our social media. So the other thing I like to do here is to just show some examples of what we've put out on our social media. And I'm going to go through this quickly because we don't have a lot of time. But on the left here, this was our holiday season's greetings posting we put out on Twitter and Facebook. On the right, this is the LTE that was published and which was submitted by our Woodlands colleagues. And on the left, there are a lot of very interesting postings we put out about renewable energy, debunking of, disinformation and so on. So lots of good information. On this slide here on the left, this is the LTE submitted by John Segrin that was published by the Chronicle, really excellent article. On the right, another story about renewable energy, about China. And so something that I noticed, because I read the news every day and I look for these very interesting articles, even though China, is one of our worst, polluters globally, they also are leading the way in renewable energy and making more progress than any other country in renewable energy. So it's really very interesting what's happening there. On the left here, this was from our holiday meet and greet, holiday gathering for cookies and cocoa holiday cheer. A really nice photo. And after I saw that photo, I noticed that most of us have some red, right? It's the red season. So we're all wearing red for the most part. Very interesting. Let's see on the right, a posting about green hydrogen news article that I saw. This was a planned project scaled at 1 gigawatt size in Europe, a plan to be located in Europe, and that's being planned now. On the left here, another interesting article in regards to storage for renewable energy, and this is one area that I'm seeing lots of progress in terms of technology and innovation, all different methods and things that people are trying out for long-term storage. In this particular example, this company created a pilot plant to use compressed air for long duration storage. So just very, very interesting. And that's it. And Dory, chapter development.
I like the picture so much, I put it in again.
Thank you.
So, yeah, we welcome all to join our chapter. So we have a team of folks calling as people join. We call and welcome them and let them know about our different level groups and invite them to join Slack. And so if we haven't called you and you're new, my apologies, but we try and keep on top of that. And then we encourage you to think beyond CCL. What organizations are you part of? Are you part of a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout troop? Are you involved in a house of worship? And as Mark said, we've been doing and can do presentations, so let us know. We'd like to do that. And once a month last year, we were trying to do a greet and walk or greet and do something. And Court was looking the same eye this morning. I was looking and say, what can our first gathering be for this year? And she found the March Trash Bash. And so more to come on that. It's March 26th if you want to put a hold on your calendar. We'll go meet, greet, pick up trash. So that'll be our making the world a little better and enjoying the outdoors, since that's what we're here trying to protect. Thank you.
Thank you, Dory.
A quick question.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. I know I've been missing, but I'm back. This is Yvonne.
Hi, Yvonne.
Hi. Okay. So for the groups, I'm in Engineers Without Borders. So if I wanted to invite you guys, how do I do that?
Is that for a presentation? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Why don't you just drop an email to me? You have my email address, and if you can just provide the details of when we think that meeting might occur, the
Okay.
date, what time it is, if there is some particular topic of interest, and what size group is it? How many people do you think might attend that meeting? And maybe some background on what that group is and the purpose for the group. And that gives us enough information to try to put together a good presentation.
And I'll just add, En-ROADS Without Borders would be awesome. Showing En-ROADS to Engineers Without Borders rather would be very, very exciting, I think.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you for that. So I don't think we're really going to have a breakout session today, that we have 10 minutes left. But if there are additional discussion topics, we can do that now. And one thing that I just want to add, we didn't have a slide for it, but we now know who our guest speaker will be in February, I believe. Court, did you want to share more details on that?
Sure, I was just about to put it in the chat, but so we will have Dr. William Perkison, who is an assistant professor at the Southwest Center for Occupational and Environmental Health. He will be our guest speaker. One of our volunteers, Max Galvan, he has a separate organization for mental health professionals across the nation, and Dr. Perkison was the guest speaker, I think, in November. And so we'll have him, on our next chapter meeting, so Saturday, February the 12th, at the same time, starting at 10:30. And he asked if there was a particular area of climate change's association with health that we as a group are interested in. To let him know, and he can cater that presentation or be ready for questions. So if anyone has any particular questions for him, y'all can put them now here in the chat, or you can email me if you think of some between now and let's say the end of the month, and that will give him 12 days to look at our questions that we have as a group. I'll put this also on Slack as a way to, from the Slack channel, you can put your questions in there. And so in the past, whenever we have guest speakers like that, sometimes they give a presentation, sometimes we ask them, it's almost like an interactive interview. And I think with this, we could do a nice hybrid presentation and then a part for questions. And so yeah, looking forward to having him at our next meeting.
Thank you, Court. And to Yvonne's point, I just wanted to mention, if anyone else who is on the call today is involved in other organizations, if you think that any of those organizations might be interested in having us be invited for a presentation, we're always looking for more opportunities for that. So just let us know. Other than that, any other general remaining discussions, questions, any feedback at all? And Christian, I wanted to thank you again for being our guest speaker and doing an excellent presentation. And that really created some very good discussion points. So thank you again.
And thank you for everyone's participation.
And I enjoyed seeing everyone in 3 dimensions at the cookie and cocoa event in December. That was very nice.
It was a wonderful event, and thank you, Dory, for getting that started and organized for us.
Yeah, I got a little overzealous and I thought, oh, we can start meeting in person as well as we can do hybrids, and that might take some time given where we are with Omicron. So more to come on that.
And just to add to that, we would like to, again, start meeting in person, but again, we just want to be very cautious and be very safe. And we just want to be comfortable before we start doing that again. So anything else from anybody?
Joe, I haven't met Pablo or Miss Sorrell. Are they new to us? And if they are, I'd enjoy just hearing them say something.
Would you guys like to introduce yourselves and just talk for a minute or two and share who you are and what made you join us?
I joined you because I'm a member of the Emerson Unitarian Church and do a lot of things with Dory. and she recommended it, but I am totally naive about this topic. I've way at the beginning, way behind all of you.
Well, you learned a lot today, I bet.
Yes.
So that's a really good point you brought up, and thank you for mentioning that. So based on what you saw today, did this help? Was this informative? Is it the kind of information you need, or do you need additional information from us?
I definitely need additional information. I also should tell you that my post-retirement job is teaching citizenship classes on Zoom. And I have a number of people right now from Iran. And in fact, I have one who's had to go back to Iran. And I was just wondering if you would accept any members of the climate lobby who are not citizens yet. They're studying to be citizens.
Of course,
Absolutely.
that's not a requirement for us. We don't need our members to be citizens.
Okay.
And in fact, just you may not know this, but we are actually an international organization in addition to a national organization. And we have chapters located in, I believe the number is roughly 55 countries.
Wow.
Through Africa, Europe, Middle East. I'm not sure if we have it at Irad or not.
Yeah.
But please send the contact information. He can certainly join our chapter and join us for meetings if he has an interest.
Okay.
And it's critical that we do have a international impact, as En-ROAD shows. We need the whole world working together to solve this. So absolutely.
And one thing I wanted to add, Dory, for Emerson, is there a possibility we can do a presentation for Emerson? Have we ever done one there?
We've done, but I'm going to be talking with Mary Evelyn later this afternoon on a different topic, and we will make sure we start that, and we can do another info session at Emerson. Emerson is 2 years ago, I guess they endorsed the carbon fee and dividend. So we have, but it always behooves us to educate some more.
That'd be great. And Pablo, please, come off mute and share a little bit about yourself as well.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity. So I'm Pablo Valdez. I actually born in Houston, but have lived abroad for a while, about 30 years. I worked for the U.S. the Diplomatic Corps, the Foreign Service, State Department, most recently in Brazil, before that in Mexico. Now I'm really back in Houston and very excited to be here, looking for local opportunities to make a difference on climate and environment. I'm an environmental engineer by training. I was involved in some of the climate negotiations in the countries where I served, representing the U.S. government, representing us all abroad. So really just getting back, really excited about what you're doing. I was able to send emails out on the call. I wasn't on top of it enough to make the phone calls, but I commit to doing that later this week. Happy to help in terms of writing or in terms of even presentations as well. Really just dipping my feet into it right now, figuring out what is happening locally. I do believe Houston is positioned for this energy transition and needs to take advantage of that. The technology will evolve. I think we all want to see dramatic change in a positive direction. I'm not confident that's going to happen, especially with our political demographics right now. So I think we need to think, transition medium term with a view to the long term that I think, the visions we were looking at with the models that we all share, but we're not going to get there quick. And we need to bring industry along, obviously. We need to bring citizens along. I think on carbon pricing, we do have a lot of common advocates and allies in industry. And so we need to find them and come together to try and make a difference in Austin and in Washington. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to add one more point for both of you being new members. Let me just confirm, have you actually signed up to join, both of you?
I'll double check. When I sent the emails, I logged in, but I'll double check.
Okay. What I wanted to add was that, we're always, so glad to have new members to bring additional energy. We need that. And if you get to a point where you feel that you would like to become, more active as members, there's so much that we can ask you to do. As we're organized, we have our 5 levers. We have our lobby lever, where we actually meet with members of Congress or their staffs here in the local Houston area, because that's where we're based. And many of us participate in those meetings, and that's quite an experience. I always say that's how you directly experience democracy, right? By meeting with our leaders. We have our media lever, which I lead, where we try to, again, publish articles, op-eds, LTEs to the newspapers. We publish on social media. We try to engage in other ways as well, if you may have an interest there. We have our Grass Tops lever, or Court is our leader, where we try to engage with community leaders, as she mentioned in her status report. We have Grassroots, where we try to do outreach just to general ordinary people through tabling events and so on. And then Dory leads our chapter development, where we just try to build up our chapter and make ourselves as strong as we can. So if any of those sound interesting, please just reach out and we can use as many active members as we can. The more the better.
Joe, Lizzie Fletcher is my representative. I was just wondering, what was the outcome of your meeting with her?
John, you want to talk about that? You're on mute, John.
You're on mute.
I'm the liaison for Lizzie Fletcher, and let's just say we tried for a long time to get a meeting lined up with her, and finally ended up not getting a meeting. We've met with her in the past, although we never got with her. We just met with her energy aide, but this time they couldn't even get to the energy aide, and even though they strung us along there for a while. So
yep.
Part of meeting for years and years on this. In my time, we did meet with her directly, and we showed her En-ROADS. We showed her En-ROADS to her staff. So we have met. She's very aware. So when you make the calls, know that she's heard this message before, but that's why we make the calls, to restate it again and again and again.
Right. And John Segrin is not here to speak about the lobby team, so I'll just add a few words. And I know we're almost out of time here. I think we've run over by 1 minute. Last year, we were extremely busy in our outreach to our members of Congress. 4 times last year, we requested meetings with all of our members of Congress. And for a good majority of them, we were successful in getting meetings with them. We have teams of people. That means it's not just a single member from our organization meeting, but we engage with teams of people. Typically, we'll have 4 or 5, or I can say that I'm a member of the Dan Crenshaw team, and we have a huge team of roughly about 10 people that's extremely interested in those meetings. So what we do is we prepare in advance. We have typically 4 or 5 planning sessions before we actually have a meeting. We prepare slide decks, we prepare talking points, and we're extremely well prepared. And Jim, did you want to add to that? You're on the Dan Crenshaw team as well. You're on mute.
Yeah, no, it's, I think we have gained quite a bit of credibility with the office. We've just met with the assistant, Hannah, I guess a couple of times. And so we are pretty good at giving her information, promising to provide information as follow-ups. So in spite of the general lack of enthusiasm by the representative for carbon pricing, they, at least their office, is becoming knowledgeable about the issue. And I regard that as progress.
And it's interesting because every time we meet with that particular aide from Crenshaw's office, she always says that we're her favorite group that she meets with. She really likes meeting with us because we're professional, we're punctual, we're extremely on point with our messaging, we're well prepared, and that's what they need. Jim, thanks for adding that. Any other comment or discussion before we end the call? I don't want to keep us here longer than necessary. Okay, let's just end it there then. Again, thank you so much for everybody for joining, and I hope to see everybody at our next meeting as well. Thank you again and have a great weekend.
Be safe.
Thank you.